Hello and welcome to the newest episode of the Nonprofit World. Today a very special guest, and I promise we're going to have a really good time and a very inspirational time all at the same time. Our guest is Dr. Steve Sobel. He is an author, a motivational speaker, a humorist, an educator, and also an athletic coach. Quite a combination of items, and we're going to get into every one of those and really enjoy ourselves today. He's the author of a book. He's written the book, The Good Time Handbook, Your Guide to Positive Living and an Exciting Life. And I've had the chance to scan through the book, and I'll tell you, it's a lot of fun and a lot of great ideas here. So we'll get into that as well. He is, I mentioned, an athletic coach. He's the head coach of the Springfield Slam basketball team. It's part of the greater Hartford Pro-Am Basketball Summer League, and quite a successful one at that. He also holds a PhD in philosophy, thus the Dr. Steve Sobel from Pacific Western University. Thank you very much for joining us today, Dr. Steve. A pleasure to have you on the Nonprofit World.
I wouldn't have missed this, and I'm thrilled to be here and thrilled to share with you, and I'm sure we're going to touch lives in a lot of ways today.
Coach, let me ask you a bit more about your work with nonprofits and the times you have to speak with them. Executives in nonprofits are in a very interesting position these days, very challenging.
Yes.
How do you motivate? How do you find the emotional intelligence traits that you can develop with nonprofit executives compared to those in the for-profit sector?
The main difference in the nonprofit sector is a lot of times we're dealing, quite frankly, with compensation packages that may pale in comparison to corporate America. That breeds a whole set of different challenges for staff. They become more mobile, they'll leave if they don't like something. If you think something's a rumor, and there are more rumors in nonprofits than in companies. Companies, they get the big press, we can cut through it. Be direct with your staff individually, kindly, but individually, in meetings, as well as in group meetings. I always have a little phrase for nonprofit leaders: be ruthless with time, gracious with people. No matter what stresses you feel, if you're a leader, you got to be able to separate yourself and be able to say, what people need my time today? Even if it's a brief hello and you make up something, how you doing with that project? Ask people where they are, because they want to know, in nonprofits especially, where they are in the march to success in those companies. Now, corporate America has the same things, but it's further enunciated with all the nonprofits that you really have to flap your wings and expand your wings and really understand that your time and your presence is as valuable as you on the phone and in your budget meetings. Make your people be the strength under your wings. And even if you speak to them once a week, you know what they're going to say? He cares, she cares. So caring is something that is a skill that can be practiced. So those type of things, I think, stand out in my mind in terms of the difference between nonprofits and profit leaders. Now, there are some profit leaders who follow those things. They'd be good in nonprofits as well. But it's really getting a heartbeat and trusting your thoroughbreds in nonprofits. The few people who are kind of highly motivated each day through their, whatever it is, through their own choices, rely on them to get the heartbeat. Don't be afraid to ask what the heartbeat is. Have little huddles in the morning, like a football team. What's the huddle today? In other words, time well spent in activities that are purposeful and fun, and know that we're all on this raft together. We don't know where the heck it's going, but we're going to keep you on the raft, and that's the message, and that can be learned, and that's what I speak to nonprofit leaders about in depth, and we do some inventories and things like that, and help them make choices how good they want to be if they want to stay in nonprofit leadership.
Now, what about motivating the staff? Is it different? Profit versus nonprofit?
It's only different. I always go to corporate meetings, they got bigger breakfasts. You know, they serve more food. There's companies that'll bring in for lunch. You know, nonprofits, we have to watch every budget item. Look, I worked in a school system. Nonprofits, okay? Teach at a college. A lot of them are nonprofits, some profits. So it's about the quality of the timing and the frequency of the meetings you have. Even if you think you have nothing to say, there's always something to say. Keep your meetings at a standard length. If it's for 30 minutes, don't dismiss them after 20. Say, well, I get this meeting. Give them the time, because only one person may have a question. then the other person may have a question. So run your meetings with consistency. Have your little agenda, but also tell a funny story in the beginning. Know that if somebody's going through something or that they've been there 5 years, celebrate all the successes. And nonprofits have to do that because you can't always reach in your pocketbook and give them what they're worth. And they're worth as much as or more than anybody else. So your increments of time and caring and leadership, and never say, we're going to look at that. I'm glad you brought it up, without you looking at it, because people are tuned into their own radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me, especially in nonprofits. And you know what? They can detect when you're not being genuine. Be genuine. Tell the truth. Couple it with some good stories. Learn to enjoy your job, because in 10, 15 years, it goes very fast. It goes like this.
Now, what was that phrase again? Be brutal with your time?
Oh, be ruthless with time, gracious with people. Now, every quote I give, I could put in parentheses, not easy. Not always easy. And really what I'm saying to people is go easy. You know, we're all in this together. Very few things are the end of the world. So know that people have to go home to their families every night. Be aware of their stress levels. Do not deliver bad budget news on a Friday. Use some timing. Use some common sense. Nothing's as uncommon as common. And sit down.
And that's because?
That's because people will take it home to their families, and they need family time to buffer with all the winds of change that are coming, and which is another seminar, Navigating Change.
And they would stew on it over the weekend, thus rising anxiety.
Well, that's when they'll call in sick on Monday. So, and that's going to cost you too. So those are just some of the things.
What's your main message that people should never miss?
The main message is always understand that everybody's going through something. If I wrote a second book, Jerry, that's the title. Everybody's going through something. So what can happen to me, good and bad in my life, so to speak, can happen to you. And I like to share and think we're all in this together, and that I can give you some guidance and inspiration based on some experiences I had that maybe you can take advantage of and understand and make your life richer with your family, your kids, your company, basketball team, whatever it is. So I'm very truly blessed and always genuinely enthusiastic. I don't have to go back there and rehearse being positive. I am very positive about life.
Isn't it pretty common among people to think when times are low that nobody else has gone through this? That nobody has got it as bad as me.
It promotes tunnel vision, especially when under stress. You know, woe is me. And if you stay with that long enough, it can be very draining emotionally. It can be paralyzing. And life is for living, laughing, and learning. That's my philosophy. So on top of what other people believe, that's something. Living fully every single day, even when you don't feel like it, even when you got a little cold. Laughing with each other, laughing at yourself. Laughing, living, and learning every single day. And before you know it, that journey of life is going to come to a certain point. So why not enjoy the journey? As we say, it's common knowledge, but nothing's as common as common sense. Live fully as best you can. Embrace what you got. Appreciate what you got. I'm getting warmed up already, Jerry. You better watch out here. And,
have you always been this way? Were you this way as a kid, or are these life lessons that brought
I think
you
I was that way
out?
as a kid, but that's a great thing. I think life lessons shape you. I think coming from very, very challenging times, making things happen, know the world can have a lot of options in your life. I've been a school principal, basketball coach, well-known national motivational speaker, and there's one thing I've learned, that when we say is everything possible, not everything, but many things are possible beyond what you think you can do.
When you were young, you had a very close relationship with your dad, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you tell us about him?
Yeah, well, my father was a stockbroker and didn't start doing well until his later years. Mom, we don't want to leave her out. She's 94 years old. Mom is a teacher and basically supported the family until he got things going. But as a dad, as a father, as a human being, there was nothing more precious to me than the time that he spent with me, whether it's going to basketball games, helping build a gymnasium at the local community center, and understanding that when you're involved with people, or when you're on a basketball court, inside those lines, nothing bad can happen. So basketball was the genesis, of all this. And Look, he was also a guy that said, get up and do the lawn too. So teaching responsibility and accountability, and that's where my work ethic came from, my mother and my father. So I've been very blessed, and I try and share that with people.
What was the first time that you realized perhaps you've got a gift to be able to share your life experiences?
It is a gift, and I've been told that, even coming from the nonprofit conference. Thanks for sharing. It's a gift. It's being genuine in telling people things that you want to make points with through stories, through your experiences, and letting them know and think, maybe something that I can do. Maybe I can write a book. Maybe I can apply for a new job. Maybe I can go for a master's degree. My past does not always predict what my present has to be. Live fully. You know, it's like that beer commercial. The guy on the Dos Equis, whatever it is. Live fully, my friend, whatever it is. And live fully. And if you're going to get down for 10 or 15 minutes, not for 30. Life is tough. Life knocks you down. But you can get up, and that's the feeling, I think, that keeps you going. I can get up. And that's what we try and do when I speak to companies, when I speak to individuals, when I speak to my players. Because you're only doing something for a short period of time. Everything you do is for a short period of time. And if you have your physical health coupled by a reasonable level of mental health, I think you have a potent combination.
You keep bringing sports up. It seems to be a theme with you, maybe even a meme. I'm curious about, in general, what some precepts of being a good athlete, or in your case, coaching good athletes. And for the majority of people, majority of us who are not athletes, what sort of top 3 traits, for example, can what a successful athlete brings to a competitive situation can we bring to our everyday lives?
I think accepting disappointment. Not everything goes well in a basketball game. But not everything goes well in the game of life. It's not about basketball. It's never been about basketball and points. It's about the game of life. How to bounce back. How to bounce back on short notice after a tough loss. How does that translate into life? You still got to show up even though you had a bad day at work. So that would be number 1. I call it resilience. Number 2 would be the idea that work can be enriching just like being on a team. Work is a team. And you should feed off the energy of people. And when people retire, they got to be real careful because life can change dramatically. They're going to miss the people. They may not miss the place. So the second thing is engage all the time with people as best you can. You don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to be an introvert. But if you're part of a team, you're a lucky person, whether it's athletic or in life. And the third thing that I've learned about sports and life is the fact that you're always going to run into some people who potentially can change your life. You don't know who those people are at the time. But if you listen, can take some constructive criticism without overreacting, and I talk to young kids about this. I spoke to all the middle school kids in Meriden, Connecticut about choices, about engagement, about making the right choices. It's about understanding that one person can influence your life very deeply. And I think that's what I do with coaching. You know, I get the joy. I get in that zone. We win a lot of games. We're a top team in the Hartford Pro-Am. I recruit. But when I come into a company or I come into a public seminar, which you know I'll be doing, it's about knowing that you can make a lot of things happen. You want to call them minor miracles? You can. And you never know who's going to change your life. So you got to keep on keeping on. I hope that answers your question.
It does quite well.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about motivating athletes.
Yeah.
As a coach, what are some of the things that you do to reach them, to whatever the goal is, to maybe win a game? That's kind of a big goal, but probably it's even a smaller goal in order to get to the point of doing your best in the game. Setting a pick, for example.
Well, I'm getting so excited, I'm cutting you off. And that is, one of my mentors was a guy named Jim Valvano. And we know about Jimmy V, and those people don't have to know basketball. But Jimmy Valvano, when I played basketball, I was a pretty good player. I got to go to camps on scholarships. He was my camp counselor. And to answer your question before I lose my thought, is his line, and this is his line, and it's become my line. And my daughter's named after his daughter, Nicole. It's don't ever, ever give up. So when you talk about motivating an athlete, we're down by 10 points with 10 seconds to go. We're not giving up. We're putting on a full court press. Put on a full court press in life. Do all you can do until the final buzzer sounds. And I've learned it from cancer survivors. I'm not one myself, but I get to speak. I was at Harry Gray Cancer Center, Yukon, guest speaker, Cancer Survivors Day. The clock no longer says tick, tick, tick. It says precious, precious, precious. And even if you don't so-called win, you prepare yourself for the next challenge. And may I also say something? My father taught me 2 words about a peak-to-peak experience, Jerry. That there's got to be some mountain peaks, how do you spell that in your life? P-E-A-K, that you don't think you can climb. But when you have somebody in your corner like a coach who says, go and try, go play against that All-American, go apply to that company, go have that great marriage, build it. Don't be afraid because it's your 3rd marriage. Fear is going to ruin you. You get to the top, it allows you to P-E-E-K over all the seemingly insurmountable peaks. Now that sounds like cliche-ish, a motivational thing, but you know what? You asked me the question, how I motivate people. I want them to see themselves in this game or in this life circumstance and prepare them for the next game, that you can have that can-do attitude. Life will knock you down, but we're going to help you get up. Don't say you can't do it until you try.
I've noticed that athletes, by nature, the great ones, are competitive. The very successful ones are those who have that trait in common.
Yeah.
What about those of us who aren't athletes and we live in a competitive environment, the world, our jobs, everyday relationships? How can we spark that sense of competitiveness, that willingness, that passion to climb to that mountain and to have that peak moment?
You ask a great question. You're good at what you do, I can tell already. Be very grateful for being physically healthy or somewhat physically healthy, because without that, then there are other factors that come in. Take care of your own mental health. Get mentally healthy. I don't care if it's yoga, or I don't care if it's counseling, I don't care if it's a peer group, whatever it is, start to get mentally healthy. And then once you do that, all the other things become a little easier. So a little self-care. When I was with the Department of Corrections as a consultant, I started the stress management program for all the correctional officers in the state years ago. And they had a program called TOFU, Time Out for You. So sometimes you got to take time out, not take a serious inventory of things, but saying, hey, what today do I want to continue tomorrow? What new things? And to have good people in your life. I don't think there's anything more precious than a good relationship. I don't care who it's between, but people who can support you and love you. Love has not gone out of style. You know, I love my family, I love my players, and it's not all romantic love. And then romantic love is a separate thing. Hopefully you have all 3, man. And you know what? Then life becomes a great, great experience because you have people that can understand that you're not in it together. And you know, we have weak moments, don't we? But we get stronger when we're around the right people. And I always have a little saying, if you hang out with dogs, you're going to get fleas. Hang out with the right people. And sometimes that takes work. And when I speak to kids, I told you I spoke to the Simsbury schools, the teachers, but I also get to speak to kids. I love speaking to middle school kids because they're halfway between elementary school and high school, and that's the most critical to me. Start to hang out with the right people. Start to understand that you're going to get the right ideas from the right people. Don't become part of our prison system. Become part of our life system. So with this team, we have a Slam Youth Initiative that we've started. People can certainly contact when you give that number. We take at-risk 7th and 8th, 9th graders. We bring them to the games. They sit on the bench. We buy them books. They get mentored by my players. It's not about basketball. It's about making people's lives better. The other thing that I will say as a coach, I can't win without talented people. So if I can get some talent and recruit that, it makes me easy to motivate them, and then I'm a great coach. You know, once I have talented people. And they went, he's a great coach. And I go, I had a lot to work with, but they worked hard to get to where they are. Stay in the gym 10 more minutes. Stay in a meeting 10 more minutes. Read a good book. Reading is very, very important to me. To tell people to read. You know, we found out that young ladies who don't read at grade level in 9th grade are more apt to visit the correctional system. So reading, feeling good about yourself. Self-esteem has not gotten out of style. And then reflect. And then there are some people you're going to want to stay away with for a period of time because they become a little too negative, a little too toxic, and those repeated messages are going to lay on the brain too fast. So be selective in who you're with and who you listen to. So hopefully I answered that question in a long-winded manner.
And entertaining.
Thank you.
You mentioned self-esteem. It seems to me, after reading your book, that
Yeah, it's in there.
That's one of the linchpins of success. Talk to me about the path to achieve self-esteem.
There is and I don't know who created it. I don't think I did. Self-esteem, to me, there's a kind of an acronym, for lack of a better word, ILAC. I am lovable and capable. And it's not a soft, lovable and capable. Seeing yourself as being able to go up against the wind. You know, there's a song, Running Against the Wind. You're going to run against the wind. But if you feel lovable, meaning you can engage people, if you can do things where you feel capable, it shows. It shows in your voice. It shows in your body language. It shows in everything. It shows when a waitress greets you, or a waiter at a restaurant. How are you? How long you been here? I go out there, how can you ask those questions? How can I not ask those questions? That could be my daughter or my son. I'm getting chills talking about this. So there's so much to do that's good in life, and you got to go out and try it and engage people, even in situations where maybe people say, what are you doing? You know, there's no set of rules that I can't talk to a waitress and ask you how you're doing. I think I'll probably get more food and better food anyway. So every avenue, every life circumstance has a potential to uplift your life, and that's what self-esteem is.
It really sounds like a big part of it is just engaging with other people.
Engaging with other people, listening, sharing the stories. I've been in restaurants with waiters and waitresses we've talked for 10 minutes and everybody says, can we order? Well, we did. We just ordered a dose of mental health before you ate your meal. Oh, I know her family. And I am increasingly amazed by how small a world it is, how we know people, how we make connections. I teach at the college level, as I shared with you, and no matter what course I'm teaching, I always say, your network is your net worth. Get people, and you don't have to know them that well, that you can rely on, that you can call. Hey, do you mind if I come in here, would you do? Don't be afraid to ask people to do some things for you if it's reciprocal and you would do it for them.
That sounds like a really difficult thing for a lot of people to do.
Very
ask
difficult.
For help.
Well, they predict the future. They don't want to hear from me. Most people who have, let's say, made it, and it's quality of life, not just money, are more than happy to start to help people. It makes them feel good. It gives them self-esteem. You know, we have all these programs and all these nonprofits about mentorship and all this, and you can mentor in a lot of different ways. So yes, that is a very, very good point.
It still seems like many people would be shy to even approach someone as outgoing and gregarious as yourself.
Yeah.
To say, hey, can I have a few moments of your time and ask you such and such?
I had a parent come up to me, I give some basketball lessons to kids of her age, and said, hey, Doc, there are three things you can call me, Doc, Coach, or Steve, doesn't matter. Can I talk to you about my son's school? I said, of course. That was the beginning of the Slam Youth Initiative, where I go to the special ed meetings or the regular meetings. I said, we want it to be successful in school, not just come to basketball lessons. So of course you can talk to me. People want to talk to people that they can get strength from and advice and open their heart so they can sleep better at night. And we need more of it, and more people have potential to do it. Don't predict that somebody's not going to help you or talk with you. Make a phone call, have an email. You know, you call certain people at the wrong time. What's the matter? No, I just called to see what's going on. I was thinking of you. They don't know what to do with that. But do 2 of those phone calls a day, and they're going to call you back. So it's a reciprocal thing. So I see the lights going on in your head over there. That's good.
Mm-hmm. And as they teach you in the Dale Carnegie program, the worst they can say is no.
The worst they can say is no, and sometimes those people come back to say yes. So like in life, for every no you get, watch, it brings you closer to a yes. And being halfway getting a yes, halfway yes, is powerful and strengthening too. And then we talk about, you know, I do a lot of things with humor and laughter and topics. Driving in the car, listening to music. I love to see people singing songs in cars. I tell people, sing some songs. At a lot of my seminars, I said, who's ever heard of Gene Chandler? Somebody goes, didn't he write Duke of Earl? And we sing Duke of Earl at a seminar. And I said, I don't care if you sing off key or on key, but one of the features of my seminars and why I'm asked to come and why I love doing what I do is I'm not afraid to put new things in there that nobody else does.
Let's talk about your seminars, because you have some coming up.
I do.
And what is a Dr. Steve Sobel seminar like, first of all? What happens in this room?
Well, it's usually about an hour and a half, and as you and I were talking in the lobby, years ago I gave many more open to the public. It's just a case of time. So I'm going to be doing a few locally. One is going to be most likely at the Marriott in Farmington, Connecticut. One's already scheduled, I think, for January 23rd at the Enfield Holiday Inn. And the seminar is going to be Dancing with Wolves, how to deal superbly and creatively with difficult people. So it's me talking, but there's a lot of exercises going on, people talking, and much like your producer or Sarah experienced to get me on the show here. Very lively, very entertaining, but also you will not hear a pin drop, because then there is some what I call Sobel gold nuggets, bullet points, and I say, write this down. Write down that thought, write down, and I see these people years later. Hey, we might have clown noses on. Some people, weren't you the guy? And it's on my website, I think, with the clown nose. I said, yeah, but I'm the same guy that's coaching and doing some serious things, but there's also some of the seminars that breed themselves with, there's a lot of levity throughout. No matter what we're doing, don't take yourself too seriously. You know, take yourself lightly so you can take your life seriously. And it doesn't mean being a comedian. You don't have to have a great laugh, but you can kind of feel it inside going, you know, nothing's really life or death until life or death. So it's an engaging, lively, wonderful experience, and often organizations and companies will bring teams of people. So we have to limit the space for the seminars, but you can give them the information on how,
yes,
get in touch with me fast.
And the way to attend is to find out from you at your email address,
Yeah.
info@drstevesobel.com, and Sobel is spelled S-O-B-E-L.
And info at capital D, small r, no
Small.
period.
That's right.
Capital S, small T-E-V-E, capital S, small O-B-E-L.com, or the phone number.
Or the phone number, which is 413
Right.
530-5173.
And be shocked if I answer the phone. I didn't think you'd answer. Why not? It's my phone. And then they started asking questions about the seminars.
I'll bet that's how you start a lot of conversations, and probably break people through that first barrier they may have of starting their own relationships,
Yeah.
conversations, self-esteem.
Absolutely. I have a gift for using sarcastic humor without hurting people. So
That is a gift.
I'll see something you're wearing or doing and say, you look like Steve Sobel. You're trying to be, what nice shoes. Where'd you get those shoes? You know, little things you can bring in to start engaging. So when Toastmasters used to ask me to do things, or Dale Carnegie would ask me to do things, most of them I turned down because I don't want to be in that formal program, but I'm giving you some things. You can start a conversation about anything. Anything. Nice beard color. You got my beard color. Oh yeah. Then I start learning about your wife and this and that. And all of a sudden we're doing the most important thing in life. We're building a relationship. Whether it's coaching, whether it's being a father, whether it's building a relationship so that if you do disagree with me or you do have something, you're not afraid while I'm on this earth to tell me. While we're on the earth. I should have a t-shirt. In fact, we had a t-shirt that I used to produce and sell at seminars, 5 colors, and it said, there ain't nobody going to ruin my day. And I think that's in the book. If you looked in the book,
Yes.
Yeah, we'll find one if you want one. And people would love, and I find people 10, 15 years ago, I'm doing a seminar for a dental office in Springfield, team building. And the woman who recommended me said, do you remember 10 years ago I bought the t-shirt? She remembered me 10 years ago. The dentist who knew me said, we want to bring in somebody who can do a team power. She mentioned my name, and he says, I was down in Sandestin, Florida. He was speaking to 3,000 people. Mm-hmm. Is that the same guy? Yeah, he lives locally in Massachusetts. I become more of a phenomenon the further away I am. If I'm in Boston, I'm more famous than if I'm in Hartford. I don't know how it works. But people's perception, you know?
You've brought your message and your your motivational speaking technique to groups of educators. In fact, that's become sort of a niche for you.
Yeah, it is a niche.
Educators seem to want to listen to somebody who's been in their shoes.
Been in their
you as
shoes.
a former principal. What's your message to educators?
Well, let's also talk about the wonderful state of Connecticut. I've been to Derby twice keynoting, and I'm just saying this informationally, then I'll give you the answer. Simsbury, Canton, opening of schools speaker. The message to the educators is laugh at yourself, and I have some unique things to education that only I can present the way I do it. I call it the snow day mentality skit, and I talk about that, the variation of emotions, how you can reach kids. Is a kid really unable or unwilling? And understand that you may be tired coming into a classroom, but that may be the day where the kid's light goes on. And teaching can be fatiguing, but it can also be the most rewarding profession. And remember that they're somebody's son or somebody's daughter, and they've entrusted you. So a lot of inspiration and a terrible amount of laughter. And that's part of the whole thing when I speak to a staff. And they don't do that the whole year, that they're laughing together, and that has very undefined rewards to it. Capability, seeing people laugh at the seminar. In fact, if people went on YouTube now, they could see, East Haven Schools has had me in twice talking about Mindset, the book Mindset. You will see, it's engaging of the audience, walking back and forth, and knowing that I want to get people to laugh at themselves too. And some of the teachers know the other two are serious, secondary teachers, the elementary, So there's a lot of humor and laughter, but there's a lot of serious messages, but they're all framed in a very positive manner as, hey, let's get ready to make the year for this kid the best in his or her life. And by the way, 30, 35 years, don't be in a hurry to retire. And I tell a story about my mother. That's terribly hilarious, but terribly touching.
Do you mind telling us that story?
Well,
I'm trying to hear it.
She taught for 35 years, and she spends half her year in Florida, and now because of her health, probably the whole year. And my sister, who has MS, 3 years old, if people can say a prayer for her, calls me up and says, Mom is going to different stores and buying teacher outfits that she bought 30 years ago. And she's in her 80s and 90s. Why? Because she gets herself on substitute teaching lists. She's on 13 down south. She was on 13 up north. And what she does is now she wishes she could go back and teach. Years ago, she might complain, getting in a car, a coffee, 35-minute drive, takes her shower, puts on her old perfume, Shalimar, takes her old teacher bag, sits by the phone, gets dressed, and she gets all these calls from the secretaries. She has no intention of going in, but she likes to get the call. So my mother loves engaging. Then she goes back to sleep at 8 o'clock. It's been quite a day. So it starts with that, and she'll always ask me, where are you speaking? Whether it's teaching or industry, if it's teaching, would you please tell them, don't be in a hurry to retire. I should have retired after 40 years, not 35. I enjoyed my friends, many of whom aren't around. People perish. I enjoy the car ride. She looks at a videotape of me. We have a Team Power tape that she watches. I said, I'm thrilled, Mom, I'll tell them. And to enjoy the cup of coffee. And then I make a joke about Dunkin' Donuts, that they're coming out with a new coffee for teachers called the Bladder Buster. And you got to put it in, you need a nurse. So we like to have other staff. So when a superintendent says, can you come and address our staff? Mm-hmm. Who's coming in? The custodians? The nurses, all the key people, and I've keynoted all the school nurses in the country, all the school food personnel in the country, just by referral. These are important people in kids' lives. You step into a school building, I'll calm down, and you're very important because kids can see you. And they're impressionable by everybody that's hired. And just like in a company, thank the person for cleaning up, thank the secretary. And in many organizations, the secretaries are the real power brokers. They can tell you a lot of things.
So many of the things you've talked about, as I listen to you, reflect back on one of the themes in your book and in all of your presentations. And it's a theme that maybe many people are not familiar with. It's emotional intelligence.
Yes.
It's a concept that's been around for several decades now. But why don't you introduce introduce to us, as if we've never heard of this term, emotional intelligence.
I'll tell you how I got connected to that. I was teaching a course, organizational behavior, at a local college. And I teach a lot of college athletic courses, and I teach business courses. And I started to read a New York Times article that my dad sent me. We used to exchange articles in the mail, regular mail. And it was by a guy named Dan Goldman. And to me, he was the architect of emotional intelligence. And it's how you, very briefly, read people, react or don't overreact. Understand where you are with around people, your social awareness. Being able to gauge how much you're going to talk or not talk. Start to read facial languages and body language. I do that a lot with coaching. It's really a way of knowing that your emotional intelligence is as important as your IQ. And you can develop that through practice with engaging, interacting people. That's why I love to speak to management and leadership staffs at big conferences, small conferences, companies, and we really go into it, have a little PowerPoint on what it is formally, and then we do some breakdown exercises where you can practice getting to be emotionally intelligent, believe it or not. So it's that type of venue, and it's growing. It's picked up a lot of steam because, I brought this paper. How is it measured? There's now 10 inventories of how you can measure it, very formal. We won't go over it, but it can be measured. So it's not pie in the sky. It's not Far Eastern voodoo magic. It's another part of leadership, but you don't have to be a leader in an organization. It's how you lead your life.
From what I've read, some of the general effects of emotional intelligence are better social relations for children and for adults. People who are aware of emotional intelligence and how to use it are highly intelligent or are perceived more positively by others. In addition, you end up with better family and intimate relations.
Being aware of your social skills, knowing that communication is something that's ongoing in terms of growth, and letting people know that not only their voice is heard, but their meaning is heard. And from that, you can ask some questions. And you got to ask questions because too many conversations are fast. I'd rather have one or two good conversations where I can talk, well, what do you mean by that? How did you get to that? Than 10 where I rush through them. So you're absolutely right. Emotional intelligence involves understanding what you're saying and how you're saying it and where you are in your life. And you know, I spoke to the Army once. It was a TACOM unit. I don't know what that stands for. Up in Flint, Michigan, they flew me in. And I was speaking to generals and colonels on how to relate to, for lack of a better word, lower staff, but with emotionally intelligent. And that was a tough one because, you know, they got their way of doing things, and a lot of that is positive because you're talking about some serious things here.
Yes.
But how to get people to follow you in a way where they're committed and not just doing it to do it. We want commitment. So emotional intelligence can gain commitment from leaders in organizations if you understand it. And, you know, I do that workshop, yeah. And it's a big thing. It's a big thing now.
What are some beginner steps towards achieving emotional intelligence?
Taking some inventories. What are your most prominent social skills? What would you like to do better with people? Communicate, engage people, ask questions without being afraid to ask questions, asking open-ended versus closed-ended questions, trying to digest and say, can I get back to you on that? Pacing yourself and letting people know that a conversation doesn't have to be just an hour. It can be ongoing. So I hope you call me in the future. We can talk. Those are some of the beginning steps. And this sounds silly, but I tell people to get a mirror and see how you look with your facial expressions when you're talking. Do you use too much of your hand language? Do you smile? Is a smile believable? And smiles can be practiced. So we got a long way to go in getting people to be the best they can be in their interpersonal skills. And that's what emotional intelligence really promotes.
Some of those things would be pretty frightening. Look into a mirror and see what you'll look like when you speak.
It could be frightening, but can you imagine being able to just do it once or twice and then saying, hey, it's a little less of a threat? And so many things come on as a big, I call it billboard threat. They're built up to be a threat. But when you break it down through some practice and application, it's like teaching a jump shot. It becomes more of a matter of course than a threat. And that's when you start saying, I can do that. Not perfectly, because to me, perfectionism leads to procrastination, get this, and then leads to paralysis. So don't seek to be perfect in whatever you do in making yourself a better person, a better manager, a better leader, a better father, a better coach, which I've spoken about today. You know, those are all the things. You're more than one thing. Get to know people in terms of what they are, not just what they do. You say to people, what do you do? Oh, I make people feel better. I talk to, no, what do you do? What is your job? Well, my job is one thing. My persona is another thing. Hopefully they match up and complement each other. And be gracious that you can articulate in language. Practice using good words. All my college students, many of them are freshmen. No matter what course I teach, you're going to get some spelling words, and you're going to be able to articulate words and not use words you don't know the meaning of. You know, because there's some words out there that, you know, you're going to slip and you're not going to get hired. It's about survival in the workplace.
I'd like to ask you about the part of your resume that says humorist.
Yes.
In fact, you even quote Mark Twain in your book, one of America's best recognized humorists. How can someone find humor when the chips are down? That has to be the most challenging time when you really need it.
You know what? You almost have to force yourself to see some things in a better light, a different light, leave the problem, concentrate on the humor, especially if you're with other people, and then that problem can be under a little different spotlight. So it's talking about little things. Well, and it could be telling a joke, but it also can be that you can't believe what he said, you can't believe what she said. So keeping it light. Take yourself lightly so you can take your job seriously. Another quote, he or she who laughs lasts. Because not every problem today is going to be so serious unless you carry it over. Don't always carry things over. I always like to say, on your gravestone, you don't want it to say, dead but live life appropriately. Have some fun. Send a little card. Laugh a little, Comedy Channel, watch a little Seinfeld, whatever it is. Interrupt your serious life with some things that will allow you to take your serious life better. You don't have to be a comedian. Comedy clubs are big. Why? People want that escape. So provide a temporary escape with humor. And we talk about it in the book. I love quotes. I love quotes. And you just quoted one thing, you know? So there's a lot of those quotes.
Here's the page, success phrases to help you through all phases. These are wonderful quotes, including, could you read a few of your favorites?
Yeah. Live all you can. It's a mistake not to. Author unknown. Many things I've worried about, few of which ever happened.
I happen to like that one.
Mark Twain, because then you get into serious and you say the mind is a simulator. What you put in can expand or grow. You don't have an infinite amount of mental energy. And if it's with fatiguing or worrisome thoughts, you can't worry for a half hour straight. Why don't you worry for 27 minutes today? Cut it short by 3 minutes. You know, do funny things like that. There's another one here. If you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up somewhere else. So set your expectations high. And people say, I don't want to go back for a master's degree or be the first in my family to go for a college degree. Well, you start with one course at a time. You lay one brick at a time. It's one relationship at a time. The word one or the number one is very powerful. 1 second, I can change a life just by looking at you. 1 second, I've seen a basketball game change. 1 second, I've seen people avoid catastrophe. So yeah, these are quotes, and if people contact me, I will also send them a list courtesy of some new quotes that people give me and I also create about humor and life. Humor is perspective. Humor is perspective. And I get asked to speak at a lot of humor conferences, but somebody says, why do they hire you to speak? Because there's natural humor. Anybody can talk and do a PowerPoint. I roll up my sleeves and I talk, and I'm no better than anybody else, but that's my gift. That's why I'm here today.
I'm curious, you've been doing this for so many years. What has changed in the audiences that you address, say, 20 years ago compared to
today?
That's
a great question, because I don't know if my audiences are lying, but some people will say, you still doing this 10 years? You still look like you did 20 years ago. So I don't know if they're lying, so maybe it's that self-gratification. But it's knowing that I can still connect. I have different stories, different things in my life with people that I knew for 20 years. And I've had people, a group may hire me. I just did a cancer survivors group presentation, Sturdy Memorial Hospital, Attleboro, Mass. 3 times I've spoken there every 10 years. It's not like a locust coming back. You know, we want you, we'd have you every year, but we can't afford you, and people want something different. I said, look, I've been to some groups. I remember the York County Teachers Consortium, new teachers in York County, Pennsylvania, several thousand. So I convinced them, bring me back 5 years in a row. No one's disappointed, and I always had some new stuff or revive. But it was about, hey, I remember you about your kid 2 years ago. How did you remember that? Because I have a good memory. I may not remember your name, but I'm going to remember you visually. So what's changed is really nothing, and I'm glad I have the brain power to just recognize people and give them a hug. It's like coming back to a family. Come to a Sobel seminar, you know? Oh, he's speaking, I can't miss him. Why? They don't ask always about the content. It's about the feeling I leave you with.
What do you want people to walk out of your seminars? What feeling do you want them to walk out of your seminars having? Know that
there's potentially some things that they can be doing with people or situations that may enhance the outcome of that situation that you haven't tried. And to take yourself lightly, because rejection is going to be part of the plan. And even if you feel stressed, you know, make sure you take care of yourself nutritionally and physically. Sometimes you got to pick yourself up by your pants and go work out. Sometimes you got to just go out, because, you know, people become paralyzed very easy. No, you may have a half hour, you may need a nap because you got so much stress in your life. I understand that. But after that half hour, let's see if you're ready to go. Take that half hour, but let's see if you're ready to go. Don't spend the whole day. And I'm going to tell you this. NAMCO, are they still around? NAMCO, pool people.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to tell the audience this, because I share. And I'm going to say this guy's name. I haven't seen him for 15 years, but people teach me lessons. Can I tell you what he taught me?
Please.
His name is Jim Talona. He was the director of human resources. And we were planning a seminar. I did their sales meeting. Did a couple of them. And 2 brothers, I think, own NAMCO. Maybe they still do. And Jim says, and I said, Jim, how do you stay so positive? Well, he says, it ain't easy. And this guy, I remember, lost a child. I never forget that. I'm going to say this. And he says, you know, there were days I felt like staying in bed, but sometimes I had to force myself to get out of bed. I remember that from 15 years ago, and I'm going to feel sorry for myself. So if Jim Talone is out there listening, everybody, God bless you. We love you. Thank you for sharing that with me. And then we had, and he's upbeat, and he was at the meeting, and he just found some other things to build upon without forgetting the love he had or has for his kid, depending on your belief system. That was very powerful, and I can tell you 1,000 powerful things like that.
So it sounds like you get as much as you give.
Absolutely, because if you are genuine, and you don't have to be a Steve Sobel speaker, but genuine, you're going to hear stories that illuminate your life. What's Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul? It's a series of books that people wrote in and shared, and they're great books. But it makes you feel better. I can do, and somebody else is experiencing this as well. And that's a great series of books. I don't get a cut from that series. I wish I did. But Jack Canfield, who is the author of that, does a great job and did a great job. And he's also a great speaker, Jack Canfield. Yeah. So you're right. I get as much as I give. And you know what? Even if you're going to be a little down and negative, I'm still going to come at you and give you a little bit of me. You're not going to discourage me from encouraging you, which is what a lot of kids do also. We talk about that when we talk to teachers. Kids are masters at manipulation, even the great kids, whatever you define great to be.
Unpack that for me. What do you mean kids are great manipulators?
Meaning that
in your situation.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with them.
Well, because a lot of the kids are very sophisticated in telling stories before telling the truth. And I've learned as a coach and a parent, and I always say that if you ask my college students, what does Dr. Sobel demand when I'm late? Why you're late, tell me the truth. The alarm clock didn't work, buy a new, but don't lie to me. Because you start lying. How many people do you know that lie so much they can't even tell the truth? That's tough for kids because they can play a lot of people. And players, my basketball can play a lot of coaches. and people can play you, meaning manipulate. But you know what? Once you lay some ground rules in a very, very cordial but respectful but direct manner, there's not going to be a problem or as much of a problem as before. Now, none of this is easy, so this is just a TV show which hopefully they'll watch again and say, what did he say? Because some of the things what did he say? Watch it again.
I know I've been thinking that too during our conversation.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I didn't give you an opportunity.
I love that word, remiss.
Remiss.
That's been one of my favorite. That, panacea, plethora, I love these words.
As a cliche, yeah. I mean, it falls right into.
I walk in a supermarket, you got a plethora of things in that basket. What? Overabundance. You didn't know that? Yeah. Engage with strangers. Play it safe, but engage. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Got it. But I would be remiss,
Yeah.
and I don't think the word remiss is ever used except in that phrase. I would be remiss if I didn't give the coach of the Springfield Slam an opportunity to talk about the Springfield Slam. For those of us who may be more familiar with Division I college basketball or maybe the NBA.
Right.
What is the Greater Hartford Pro-Am Basketball League?
Well,
and tell me about the Slam.
Well, I'm going to tell you, and he would make a good guess, that the guy that founded the Slam 17 years ago came from Virginia. His name is Peter Higgins. He lives in Hartford. The most tireless worker on behalf of kids. It's a free community event during the summer. Greater Hartford Pro-Am is an extremely competitive basketball league. We have NBA players, we have college athletes. I have a couple of guys who certainly are in the NBA now, but I also recruit Division III athletes, Division II, Division I. We had the top high school player in Connecticut play for me, Trey Waters. So I recruit on many levels and try and bring them together. It's a very competitive basketball. We play 8 to 10 games with playoffs, and it goes very fast. It's during June, July, and August. And we play at the High School of Sports and Medical Sciences lately. There's a GHPA website. So come see us play, come see the coach. You'll see me in a different venue. You'll see the players. And what the Slam also represents through its outreach is the Slam Youth Initiative. And if anybody, because we exist on their own, wants to help sponsor because of the quality of the kids I bring in, you got to have good grades if you're in college, you got to be a good role model. They can also contact me about sponsorship opportunities, which I'm not shy talking about.
What's the age group of the players, by the way?
Most likely 18 to 31. And I also had an opportunity this past winter, a kid who I coached when he was 8, he says, I want to be a pro team owner, American Basketball Association.
Yes.
So I coached the Springfield Sting, which was the first ABA team to come in. And we went undefeated at the Hall of Fame. I've chosen not to do it because of my other commitments, but the Slam I will always do. And that's because of Pete Higgins and the way the place is run. And they have community events and speakers, and they love the kids. They give kids jobs. Inner city, outer city, it doesn't matter. Whether you're from Simsbury or Hartford, that's the place to be if you want to see basketball and get entrenched for 3 hours.
And it must be a passionate gym when that place is rocking.
Well, the fire department has to come in and say, can you remove some people?
That's the best compliment you can get.
And you know what? It brought my son. My son is now 27, and he's an assistant coach. So I bring in who I want to coach with me. And that's a lot of fun for me. And different families come to games, families of kids I give lessons to, and they're in the stands, and the kids come, and they come to the bench. And it's a wonderful carnival.
You really know how to motivate people.
Thank you.
To get it to that point. Let me ask you, since our show is the nonprofit world,
yes.
Let me ask you about the motivation that you can bring using techniques of emotional intelligence, traits of emotional intelligence, to those folks who are at the leadership of nonprofit groups. That's a very special group of people who are already motivated for different reasons than their colleagues in the commercial world.
What I would do ideally is maybe a 1 or 2 hour meeting with your top management. Within that meeting, I customize an agenda. I'll come meet with you if I'm close enough geographically to do that. But we're really going to talk about that your people are your power, despite the cutbacks. And there's some things going on right now, despite the fact you can't get contributions, you can't fundraise. How do you still invigorate your people with your persona and your messages? And how do you walk the walk and talk the talk not overreact to people that may not be easy to get along with, but knowing they may be as valuable as anybody you get along with. And that's the starting point for that seminar. It's very powerful, and we have a lot of fun. And then we do a section, how do you laugh at yourself as a leader? Laughing as a leader. And that's very powerful because it just makes you feel better physically and mentally, because it's an endurance race. It's tough being a leader in a nonprofit these days. Things are coming at you. You got to duck. Curveballs are coming at you. So we teach you how to deal with that as best you can and to minimize not feeling useful, but feeling powerful. And what that power is, you know, you have your goodwill, you have communication, you have your personal power, and you have your procedural power. How do you blend them both in getting things done?
You make a very good point. It's a very challenging time for people in those positions.
But it's also the time, whether it's me or somebody else, to not be afraid to bring somebody in that can enhance your organization, who knows something about nonprofits and profits and the things we deal with. And I'm in those worlds all the time at a variety of organizations. I will be at the Oak Hill School next week. They heard me at the conference. And you know, with the type of kids and staff, and I'm going to come in and do an hour-and-a-half session on how to laugh at yourself and still rise to the occasion with all the demands and all the costs. And the executive director met me in the lobby. I did a little pre-meeting, and he comes out and he's shaking. And I could feel the ebullience, you know, knowing that he's looking at budget items, he's looking at staff cuts, he's looking at full-time equivalencies. But he's doing it with a little grace in his step. I teach you to be Gene Kelly so you can dance a little. Fred Astaire, you know? So a little smoothness to your dance. So you can enjoy your job and not think you always have to look for another job.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being our guest today. We've been talking with Dr. Steve Sobel, who has many things on his resume, but probably the most important thing after watching our show today, you're probably wanting to find out more. So you have some seminars coming up.
Right.
How can we find out more? You have a website and
I have a website.
an email address.
It's www. This is about the breath of my technology. drstevesobel.com or 413-530-5173. And info@drstevesobel.com. So I can be a resource for you. And even if a nonprofit leader is looking at, I have a whole stack of formal books in nonprofit leadership, but I wanted to come in today without reading out of a book. And I don't read out of a book. I just give you some things that you can share. At the seminars, you get enough formal stuff.
Terrific. Thank you for joining us today on The Nonprofit World, and we'll see you next time.